It's a Proko YouTube video. I've actually never done like a proper study with their videos. The only time I did one was when I was trying to understand the pectoralis muscle, the muscles of the chest. That was the time I actually properly sat down and watched a video that they do. Also, I also watched their video when I was trying to understand like the eyes, the anatomy of the eyes. These were the two times where I actually sat down and watched the video properly. Other times, there's just glimpses here and there on serious watches and things like that. But today, it's going to be the first time I watch a video. And since perspective is something I'm really struggling with, it's something I'm going to kind of take my time and see if I can pick one or two things from the video. So let's get to it. The first figure was, I can swear here. The first figure was very scary, and then afterwards I got a little bit more confident. So we're here at Lightbox Pasadena at the Proko booth. My name is Rembert Montald. I got these polo markers here to get a nice crisp edge, and I'm going to use this to do the preliminary drawing. So these are nice. I like them. So what I'm thinking here is, I always think in cubes. If you can draw cubes, you control the space. So I'm thinking of doing something this. As you do. All right. So first tip: think in cubes. Think in cubes. Right. So simple shapes goes back to simple shapes, where it's one of the fundamentals if you want to understand art. You have to understand simple shapes and how to manipulate them in space. See, it follows this sort of circle, and you just warp the lines from there. And if you treat perspective like this, not per se as 5-point perspective, but more as boxes, drawing things are going to be much easier. And actually, in my opinion, fisheye perspective, or at least a little bit hinting at fisheye, is easier than normal perspective because if it's a little bit off, you have some wiggle room. That's what I kind of like about it. That's actually crazy. So he said a circle. A circle. Where's my pen? All right. He said a circle. Across. First of all, I've actually never heard of this. Across, then a circle or sphere. Let me make it perfect. What am I doing? All right. So what do they call this? 4-point perspective. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, he called it 5-point perspective. So let's go with that. And then what else? So it's creating some kind of globe effect. For his guidelines. So 1, 2, 3. I just want to add one more. 4, 5. That doesn't make too much sense, but we'll leave it at that. Let's put this one 6. Right, and then these guidelines are not they're not accurate, but we'll stick with them. Yeah. So I'm just going to use another color to help me out so that I can understand what he's doing. So of course we have these little guidelines that I usually establish like a grid whenever I'm drawing because it helps guide me. So what else? Yeah, he's actually he did one more. I missed that one. So there's actually another guideline that is coming like this. Like this. This one is a little bit more accurate. But I don't want to spend forever doing it. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's actually, that looks like fun. 5. All right. So this is an interesting perspective. So let me reduce the opacity a little bit and let's see if we can look at what he's talking about. I'm going to use a pink.
All right. So what did he draw? He first drew a cube. So this is our horizon line over here, or what do the hell do they call it? Vanishing point. So we have a shape like this, and then we follow the grid like this. I think if anything is missing, is the what the hell do they call it? Those vanishing point lines that go like this. So maybe you could do like one all throughout the image like this, and that would help with the direction. If anything is missing, that would probably be the thing that's missing. Wow, that's nice. That's looking good. Interesting. And then there are some above that you could do something like this. Wow, interesting.
And actually, in my opinion, fisheye perspective, or at least a little bit hinting at fisheye, is easier than normal perspective because if it's a little bit off, you get some wiggle room. That's what I kind of like about it. It's like for short term, people think it's hard, but it's actually if you draw a fist right coming at you, and you just draw the face on the
Hi, Kaji. How you doing? Good afternoon. How's your day going? It's afternoon over there. It's evening. It's 9:28 over here. Where I currently am. How's your day going?
shoulder right here. But it's not actually harder because I didn't have to draw the proportions of the arm correct. You just draw the fist in front. And you could have made that one bigger if you wanted to exaggerate it even more. It's back to the preliminary sketch that I was going to do. So we're just going to think in terms of this. It's going to overlap a little bit. The horizon line is right here. And then you can keep drawing cubes as you go. And in this, you can draw your simple shapes. As you can see, like they fit now in this grid. Of course, we're going to be a little bit more dynamic on walking. So let's make them walk a little bit. This one was done a little bit quicker, but you get the idea.
Fundamental day. It's 1:28 over here. Oh, in the afternoon. Oh, interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you guys are like 8 hours behind. How you doing, lover? How's your day going? So, like, what fundamental are you studying exactly today? Are you still looking at forms?
And you just keep copying it around. Same here. And if you want to go,
So, what he's doing, you're telling me he's doing is that he's getting this. He's the way he's viewing perspective in general is that he's getting this cube and this center line. He's using that for sort of what he has over here, in terms of the drawing of the horses, in perspective. So he's just having a center like this, then something like this, and then he has like the vanishing point in all angles, and like that, which are sort of like the guidelines. Then he has these other guidelines like this, and those are what is sort of guiding his perspective. And the more you expand it, the more you are able to sort of um understand how. Wow, that's actually interesting. Actually, that's crazy. That's a crazy tip. I've genuinely never heard about this, and that's probably because I've never taken my time to study perspective. But that's crazy. That's actually a top tip. That's actually a top tip. Like I was doing I did a video where I was studying David Finch's perspective, understanding his like perspective and stuff like that. And he was explaining 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, and 4 point perspective. But I didn't understand it, the way he explained it was a bit more different. It was still understandable, and you can apply it, what he was talking about, but not as much as like what this guy over here is talking about. And I need to research this guy some more, see if he has some materials that I could use. How you doing, lovely? Oh, cubes in perspective. That's also good. That's also good. Like for me as well, right? The reason why those shapes that you're studying are very vital and important is because, as you can see, this guy now, he's a top artist, and you can see how he's using cubes to sort of help him, um, to guide him on how to like draw objects, simple shapes and objects, like in that confinement, and it's just a lot easier for him. And that is the thing that understanding simple shapes can actually do for you as an artist. Like for over here, for instance, now based on this perspective and this cube, you can place a human being over here. Like if you were to place like different human beings um that are standing, you could just place different human beings, uh and of relative height, but they'll still be in the same perspective, and it's going to still look very compelling and correct because of the fact that the perspective you're using or doing is actually accurate. So that's a good study. I'm doing well, lovely. Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. How's your body? Hope you're getting a little bit better. uh
Up here then, now you can see the bottom. I always think in perspective very simple. If it's up the horizon line, you see the bottom plate, and it's up, you see the upper plate. So if I would draw, for example, here,
oh, okay, that's interesting. If things are above this point over here, you see the bottom plane. You begin to see the bottom plane. But if things are below, you see the top plane. Am I right in thinking like that? Interesting. 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 That's really cool. Um Hello, imagination. How are you doing? How's your day going, bro? My nose is saying that I may only breathe through my mouth, and somehow I started coughing, but the rest got better. Thanks. Appreciate the update. It seems you're getting a little bit better. Yeah. Sometimes cold can just enter your body mistakenly. You'll be feeling invincible. Uh, that's why most of the days, like despite the fact that I'm feeling quite hot, I just take care to wear socks and rotate the socks that I'm wearing, because even though like it might be hot, there's a tendency that the weather could just trick you or could be tricking you. Yeah.
that makes sense. And always adding an environment or something that you're standing on, like blocks, should help. And you get tilted a little bit, but that's why I like boxes so much. They give you a nice angle, as you can see right here. And they don't need to be 100% accurate. Like I said, a fisheye perspective is very forgiving in that sense. But let me say this one thing why I like boxes so much. So when you're storyboarding, why I like to put it in the frame, I like boxes because it's very easily if a person is looking up, or we're looking up at a person, or we're looking down on a person. And they really are simpler to me than a circle. Because a circle, it doesn't matter which side you look it on, it stays the same shape. And cubes sort of you get which direction you're looking at them. This is the kind of practical perspective I go over more in my course too. So the first character to draw is always the hardest. I mean, it's kind of simple. It's just a fisheye that's here, and then the rest is going to go off. I'm just going to draw a horse as an elf. Like every horse that I start, I'm just going to think, what's on my mind in that minute,
Look
so I
at
can
that line
improvise
weight,
a little
man.
bit from there.
It's crazy.
I did practice a little bit. I don't mind saying that because else I would fall flat on my face. I look at it more as a musician. You practice at home, and then you play it in front of a crowd. I played guitar my entire life. Like we're really into fusion jazz at some point. Nice, I could switch it. I like this paper a lot. It's a Bristol, I think. Yeah. And here I'm always trying to find the corners of the box. Like I see this horseback, for example, these lines as a box as well. I'll pull it up from time to time to explain something else. I use this one for the gray tones and this one for pure black inking. What I like more about this paper is and not on every paper you can do it is smudging. Some paper doesn't do it as well, which is great if you don't want it. But if you do want it, it's really nice. And for these bigger drawings, I really like it. How do you keep in mind that grid while you're drawing the final?
No problem. It's all right. Lovely. It's all right. I have to get better. I have class tests. Okay, class test in English coming up on Tuesday. Tuesday, innit? That's next week, yeah? Think you have enough time. But still prepare. Start preparing nonetheless.
So I just think of the 2 feet at the corners of the box, and the top plate is the top of the box. That sort of makes sense. It's a skinny word, this one. Like focusing on the see, but every line. I mean, if you follow it to the point, it's going to be a stiff drawing, so you can't deviate from it. So these things are sort of the corners. Thanks for asking question. I like it. So here for directions and stuff. When I think like I really write my schedule a lot. I'll just keep it open now. Like the direction of legs and tubes. And all the details around it go like this, and then things go like this. And always something that I did growing up, I really like Legos. So when I draw an arm, for example, so this is a deltoid, like I would draw the arm, and then you get this shape automatically if you connect it. But that shape already does a lot for you. That's your brachialis. Same for the hand. Like never draw things in isolation. And then here you can cross the limit. So that sort of makes sense. You draw stuff in another. Like here, for example, a leg. So doing that, it gives you a lot of details. Like this is basically this area right here. And here you get your yield. No, actually, yeah, for free. And again, here this is a box. Yeah, you build from there. I did something here that I actually see a lot of people. If you study animation, then you know that if this leg is back, then this arm is forward, and this one is actually to the back. You don't walk with your right foot and right arm forward. I see a lot of people that draw people walking, and it's a little bit off. Do you start with a basic deadline layout and then add your line weights later? Yes, because if I make a mistake and the line is very thick, I can't mask it better. That's a good question as well. I don't think about these things that often because I see here I like this budget. They look dirty, but it adds the plane change. Yeah. See if you have a detail on the arm. So what I'm doing here is my hand is getting dirty from smudging, and it's starting to happen a little bit here, which I don't mind, but never hurts. See, like you can sort of paint with it as well. I can tell a story of how I recovered this sketchbook actually. I lost it 2 weeks ago in Belgium at a bus. And the next morning I realized, no, I lost my sketchbook. Oh my panic was, I always have it with me. So I go to the bus terminal at 10:30 and there's some dude that's been working there since 4 in the morning. And I said, okay, I was on this bus last night. I think I lost my sketchbook, but I could have lost it anywhere else walking home from the bus. And he was like, okay, the bus you took is in a city 15 minutes from there. There's nobody there. It's a Sunday, but I know your brother's going to drive again in the afternoon. So if you're quick and maybe someone can help you, but it's a private property. So if you go there, nobody might answer, but you can try. So I drove 50 minutes there. I was in front of the gate, like screaming, hello, hello, anyone here? nobody. I tried to press the buttons at the gates, but it was like a code or something. At the same station where you charge electric buses, nobody. And then I look at that fence, and I'm like, I could climb over that. You know, I think I can. If I climb over it, even though it's at private property, don't enter. Don't try that in the U.S. In Europe, you can. You know? So I climbed over it, and I was still like, hello, all the doors were locked, everything, but there was this huge hangar with buses being charged. And the guy gave me the paper for the number of my bus from the previous in this different city. And suddenly I saw the bus in front of me matching numbers. That's the bus. So I go in, the bus was open, and I find it in the back seat. I run out, throw it over the fence, climb over it, and I just drive away. So the guy that's on the security camera is more like, what happened here? That's what I did for my sketch. It was just finished. So I was like, no, not now. So here I really like that you can smudge it around for the texture of that stone. And to really always nail something to the ground, overlap always creates that. The more you're gonna overlap, the better.
Who are your biggest influences? Like, who are you looking up to these days?
I think the influence is pretty obvious, you know. Sadly, energy is gone, you know. But other than that, a lot of American, like old American comic book artists, like Oliver Dorn, who else? Alex Raymond, Hal Foster. I really like him too. The good thing is when you have a lot of time, you can start adding all these little things. Normally, I don't do them that often. So right now, I'm adding the line with more. Like a nice thick line on the top. Shouldn't be afraid of making very thick lines. So I do paint a lot with my pinky supporting, so I can get a sharper edge. If that helps. But I only come in later, so I feel more confident in the line. You know, see that feels like a really nice thick line. And I think that's something that I've seen a lot of people that try to draw. They don't make the line stick enough. They're kind of scared to really commit or to really push it. You can get up, but it's a little. It's a bit dry. It's more like a 30 millimeter, 20, no, 17, 17. Like a 70 or an 80 is like super wide. So this is more of a 20, I guess. So there's a little bit. Like this is more of a flat. This would be like a 50, 60, 40, 30, because there's a little bit, but not that much. And this would be the what type of, that would be like a 25 or something. So yeah, I drew the first one is the hardest one because it establishes everything. So that's why I spend a little bit more time on it. If smudging is something that's annoying to you, then I would start left and go right. But I just started at the center. So I like to get better at stylizing, but not in a cartoony way per se, but in a more realistic way, better shape designs. That's something I'm really trying to work on. Like the flow of the gesture and stuff. I started out studying animation. I still do animation. I'm a storyboard artist and I make like animatics and stuff. And I really like storyboarding because it's the only job in the industry that you can draw a lot. Characters interacting in your own style because the storyboard never has to look like a finished product. So that's why I like it. I got to draw it up like not what I want, but how I want. But every job I can find something funny in it because I've never drawn not spoiling anything. But there's certain things that I don't draw typically, and storyboarding makes me draw. And I get animated. I keep focus, and sometimes I take it very far for my own fun. I think animation is the best thing you can actually study because later on you can still do anything you want. But I think it's a good base because it's better to learn how to draw 100 arms in a week than to render an arm for a week and then wonder why it looks bad because you get a lot of repetition. It is a little bit more stylized, but if you start from a good basis of realism, and you can even still have that on later on. So if you study animation and then take a Proko course, you've got a lot of gesture already baked in and you just put the anatomy on top. I just happened to meet Ryan Woodward, like he wrote a forward for me in the book, but thank you, Ryan. I just bumped into him and I showed him my animation. Actually, I wanted just some portfolio feedback, and he just looked at my sketchbooks, some paintings I did, and he's like, "Would you like to help me in LA?" I was overwhelmed, so yeah. But it wasn't like apply for a storyboard role. It's just you saw that I could potentially be a storyboard artist. And most storyboard artists, when you start as an associate, you have to have someone that sees in you that you could be a storyboard artist. Because associate storyboard artist jobs don't exist. They don't. And that's why it's frustrating, I know, to get into storyboarding because there's just no job applications, like a senior or already director or something. I'm sorry, I can't be more helpful. I wish I could say you that do this course and that. But the same with, I think customer is a little bit easier because there's a lot of associate concept artist roles, but associate storyboard artist I've never seen, and I wish there were. It's just that you have to have a lot of animational knowledge already, film knowledge, drawing, and usually they hire. You stumble into it. So I was lucky that mine was there. You know, having to come up with solutions to cover mistakes that becomes your style. Your mistakes become your style. It's not my quotes. I forgot who said it, but I remember it too. So I was like, that's crazy. Was there a specific fundamental that you dedicated time to? And once you were done practicing, it felt like, wow, now I'm liberated. I can do more than I thought I ever could. Yeah, perspective. Perspective. Yeah. Marshall's perspective course, please. My teacher, David, never did a live drawing session in his life. I mean, it's very handy. I like doing it. But if you can't, it's okay. You can just learn anatomy online or like preferably Proko. It's a great course, very well produced.
Actually, what he's saying is very right because for me, I think what has mm, perpetually made me not necessarily a mediocre artist, but close to mediocre. Most in most cases, especially when I'm doing comics, is that I haven't properly settled down to study perspective, and perspective is extremely underrated when it comes to studying the art fundamentals. And one of the major reasons for that is because not a lot of people have actually sat down to study perspective um, in depthly. Because well, to be fair, it's not as flashy as let's say anatomy because you're not drawing a lot of figures a lot of the time. It's a lot of challenge perspective, and it's not quite as fun as like just sitting down and drawing like a bicep or drawing like quad muscles and things like that, or even in terms of doing a portrait with colors. It's not as exciting as any of those two, but perspective actually brings a lot of these things together, especially if you're someone like me who wants to become who's a comic book artist, and you depend on things like most especially values and figure drawings a lot. You really need perspective. Is essential when you're doing like comic book art. But if you're someone that's just doing portrait paintings or you're a portrait artist, you won't necessarily need perspective that much. It just depends on your ability to apply as much detail as possible and get the values of that particular portraiture correctly and consistently as possible. And then, of course, you can be very creative with shapes and things like that. But if you are going into things like storyboarding, if you're going into things like comic book art, most of these things you're going to need perspective. It's very important because that's what will make you be able to do things like dynamic angles. Like I don't know if anyone has read the Blue Lock manga. Like if you just look at the work of Yusuke Nomura in Blue Lock, you're going to see how really cool a lot of the angles, like of the footballers in the story art. He has some really amazing angles that just makes you feel like you are in the story, or like you're just like a viewer sitting like by the pitch watching the actual match. Very interesting. So that is one thing perspective I've seen other artists. It's capable of making your art to feel. It just takes you to another dimension. In my own opinion.
I'm not saying that because I'm biased. But it's a great
And in
analogy.
fact, like understanding perspective will help you with things with anatomy itself because it's going to help you with things like foreshortening and how to be creative with other fundamentals of art.
Course. So yeah, in 2014, 15, when I left UMG, so I wanted to know like how does he observe things? How does he analyze it? Like first see and understand it from every form, from every angle, and then draw it. Like this worst hat, what would that look like from the bottom or from the top or anything? So try like
Proportion. Um, I don't necessarily know if proportion is like an art fundamental, but I know it's like essential in terms of like things like anatomy because once you understand perspective, for instance, you're going to know that you're going to understand how things look because you already have a sense of space as a person. You know that usually a normal human being has is like 8 heads tall or 5 heads tall or 6 heads tall. For instance, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's say you know that this is like a proper human being's proportion, like or size. You have this idea of the proportion, like things look proportional like this with these shapes. Now if you were to take this into like a perspective like this, you're going to see that there's going to be some distortion. Now because of the angle you're looking at that character at, everything is not going to be equal. There's going to be some distortion, maybe like in the person's face, or I don't know if any of you have seen like heads in different angles. When you see like a head in different angles, you're going to see that some parts of the eyes are not going to be equal with other parts of the eyes because you could be seeing a distortion that is being caused about by the nose of the person. And that is what like perspective is going to cause. Like if you were to take this and make it a little bit higher, if you were to take this and make this a little bit higher, you're going to see the nose is going to be something like this, and the eyes is going to be really tiny, and then the mouth is going to be small like this. And that is because of perspective. Now, if you understand the proper proportions of the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, you're going to be able to properly place the head, and it's going to, still look consistent as a normal human head, even with this head angle being faced like this. And one of the things that can usually help with this is references. Like that's why I advocate for using references a lot. So if you take a reference like this, for instance, and you pick a head, oh my goodness, let's say you pick a head. Let's use, I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me expand it a bit more. You pick this normal human's head like this. You know that this is a normal human's head, but if you were to like change the perspective or the angle of this person's head, you're going to see that there's going to be some distortion. But if you understand perspective, you are going to be able to replicate that proportion on your canvas. So let's say we were to twist this a little bit like this. This is what I meant. We were to twist this a little bit like this. As you can see, the proportion of this person's body has changed, and this is because of perspective. Now, you can see that the head is not like a normal shape. It becomes a little bit more difficult to represent this. But if you understand perspective and like simple shapes, you'll be able to do it a little bit more easily because the things you're going to be looking at is shapes, because you're going to be able to break something like this, which is his head, into this angle like this. Break this up like this. Let's say something like this. And then break the rest of his head like this. And you'll be able to place things like his jaw, and then his neck, and then his ears, and then his nose, and then his mouth, and then his eyes. So it's going to be relatively easy. Of course, you make mistakes and you'll be able to correct it. But because you understand proportion, you understand perspective, things are going to be a whole lot easier for you to replicate something like this. So that is just the thing about proportion and perspective. You actually need to understand perspective because it's going to help you with this. But the most important thing, like I do say, is shapes. Because despite the fact that this is not perfect yet, of course I could draw this and make it perfect, but I'm not going to do that because of time. You are going to be able to break every single thing down from the shape of the shadow um, down to the up to the general shape of the head, and you'll be able to keep deconstructing and keep deconstructing and keep deconstructing until you get it right. And that is what understanding shapes is going to do. So shapes plus perspective plus proportion will be able to give you a good drawing. And that is why like all of these things are under like categories or subcategories of the art fundamentals. That is my biggest weakness is proportion and getting perspective right. Yeah, that's why I say you don't need to study everything at the same time. All of these things, I personally I'm still studying them. Like I'm sitting here like studying, um listening to this guy, and I'm learning something new every single time that I'm listening to him. At least today I've picked something new that can help me in my art, and I'll be able to apply it like whenever I'm working on a new comic book page. But this knowledge, I've never had this knowledge in my life before. I've never had it in my life, but this is something I just learned today, and I'm going to apply it to my drawing skills. So it's not something that you're going to learn all at once. Like previously, prior to this time, I was learning anatomy, and I've gotten good at anatomy, so I'm keeping that in the background. What I'm just going to be doing is like studies, anatomy studies, and things like that. So I understand when things look off, and I know why things are like where they are in the human body. So if I see an anatomy that is false, I'll be able to correct that, and I'll be able to indicate that. So that's what anatomy has helped me to do now, like figure drawing. Like even in an animal, even though I don't understand the anatomy of a horse, I understand things like joints, I understand things like muscles, I understand things like muscles overlapping each other. So it's going to be relatively easy for me to understand it than if I didn't understand anatomy or if I just understood shapes. So that is what it does for you. So I will say like take it step by step. You are doing shapes now, keep doing shapes. Over a period of time, you're going to get better. So the next thing you could do is that you could then use shapes, use simple, you could then take figures, complete figures, and then break them down into simple shapes, the simplest basic shapes that you understand. That's the next thing to do, in my own opinion, which can then translate into anatomy, because anatomy is very important. Figure drawing is like the most popular thing to do in art. Hopefully that is helpful.
See a shape, try to envision it from all sides, like if the camera is moving around. It's just the basic shapes anyway. Like a sphere, a cube, cone, everything is made out of those. So if you understand those, you can pretty much draw everything. And if you don't know how to draw anything, you just guess, like whatever. You'll get there. When you draw big, you just have to step back a little. But yeah, if you step back enough, it's the same. So if I was drawing it much bigger, then I would be stepping back every like minute or so to see how it relates. Because now I can see the entire paper. It's actually very lovely. I have a little time. Normally, I would be a little bit more stressed, like, oh, I only have an hour to do something. So try to draw a horse here, like a really bigger one. I can feel it vanishing into space a little bit more. If I'm traveling, I give myself like 5 minutes. And I usually only draw the things that I don't know. If there's people, I don't draw them because I can look at people around here and I have to feel that drawing because the perspective is there. But if there's something specific like a 1924 typewriter, I don't know how to draw that for imagination. So if that is in the scene, I draw a typewriter first, for example. I don't think it exists anyway, like real life. You always interpret it. For example, when I did this one, so I did this more the camera up, but I chose to do it a little bit more down. But I draw the perspective first. So before I go stand in that corner, I think about what I want to do and where I want to place them. And then I do these very little light lines and then I place it in them. And then afterwards, like they weren't frozen in those poses. So I add them later. I mean I gave them high heels, I didn't have them. Pretty at liberty. The hardest one for me was always the back muscles. The ones I sort of figured it. I could do a little demonstration of the back. So the ones I figured it actually, you don't need more. That's it. So that's already enough to indicate a back. So how I learned anatomy was basically with this is a front, I did a front. These ones. So you have the acromion to the sternum, and then you can connect like from these landmarks. And here's a little one that nobody rarely gets drawn. And then here below, like on this line as well, and then the Greek arch. So all these landmarks, and then here the the pubic area, right?
Yeah, so like form is all about making things look 3D. Like it's basically shapes, right? It's basically shapes. Shapes and forms are, they're kind of interchangeable. Um, the thing about forms usually is that, once you have like a simple shape, once you understand a simple shape like a square or a rectangle, and then you understand like a cylinder, like like form has length, width, height, and depth. So what would make like you understand things in a scene is if you make things look a little bit 3D. So for instance, let's say you start adding shadows to this object, for instance, um, you are giving it form, you're making it look three-dimensional. It's no longer just a plain, it's no longer just a plain shape. Now it has form, quote unquote form, because it has, you're showing its height, you're showing, and there are various ways that you can show form. You can show form by using cross hatching lines. You can show form by just using shading like this. You can show form by using like whatever art medium that you're using to actually illustrate. You can show form using that. For instance, you take something like a pyramid, for instance, and then you begin applying shadows to the different parts of that pyramid. And the shadows, you could make them now, like this is just two values that I've added. I could also make it a little bit thicker by making, let's say I could make an extra value over here like this. And that is what form does. Once you're able to take something and just make it a little bit thicker, so for instance here over, I could just add an extra form. I could add an extra form over here, an extra value, I mean. And value in itself is another art fundamental. So so over here, I've taken this from looking like a plain cylinder and I've made it look a little bit more three-dimensional by just adding shadows, or as they would say, values. And that is why value, in my own opinion, is another art fundamental. Even though form is important, and most people would consider form as another art fundamental because it involves values. But you create form by using values. You can't create one without the other necessarily. So if you were to create, and the reason why you study simple shapes and how the form works is that whenever you then take it to a complex object like a like something like this, for instance, now something that has shadow, as you can see, even though this is not a real person, it has the impression of a real person because the face has form. And the reason why it has form is because there's light interaction between the object, which is the face, and the environment. So it makes it look separate, it makes it look like something that has height. You can tell the height, you can tell the width, you can tell the entire structure of this thing just by looking at it. Just by looking at it. So, for instance, this face now, uh, and that is why anatomy. That's where anatomy comes in. So you can see that everything is interchangeable. Like if you're drawing the eyes now, for instance, you're drawing the eyes. As you can see, like a normal sclera isn't just purely white. You don't just draw an eye like this and be done with it. No, a proper eyes has form, and the reason why it has form is because if you can look at the eyes, you're going to see shadows, and based on the light direction, the light is coming from the left, so there's going to be more shadows on the left part of the eye. So you're seeing something like this for the eyeballs or the sclera. And then of course we are seeing the iris, which is in the middle. They didn't show that, but let's put that here like this. And because of light direction, this part of the iris is going to have more shadow. But you can see that our ball over here, our eyeball, is beginning to look a bit more three-dimensional because of the shadow and the light interaction. Now the next thing would be to add like the what the hell do they call it? The eyelids over the eyes. So you can see something like this. over the eyes. And then you can see I'm adding more values. The more values I add, the more three-dimensional it looks. And based on the shape of things is going to affect the location of shadows. For instance, the eyelid now, you can see the eyelid is actually creating some sort of, because of the shape of the eyelid, because I did a video about the eye before, and the eyelid is sort of like a covering or casing for the eyes. Let's say these are eye on the side view. And the eyelid is not just flat, it has form on its own. It has this shape. If you look at the eyes like this, the eyelid is sort of like this. It has this form that is covering the upper and lower eyelid that is covering the eyes. So it opens and closes depending on what the person wants. So that's the reason for this darkness over here and this ball over here like this. So that's the eyeball, and because of the size of the eyeball, you can see that's the reason for this protrusion over here on the eye. So we'll have our eyelids over here, and because of the presence of this eyeball, you're going to see that protrusion, which most people will call the bags of the eyes. The bags of the eyes. And based on the light direction and the intensity of the light, you're going to see the shadows over here are less harsher than the shadows over here. The shadows over here are next to black. The shadows over here are next to black. So that is generally how it works. So you just need to you don't need to draw an entire face. You just need to take simple shapes and study them. What the hell do they call them? I have references for things like this. Light, light, light breakdown, light breakdown. If you go to Pinterest, you're going to see a lot of this. And light and color is what do they call it? It's an art fundamental on its own. So like everything has sort of interconnected sphere. Yeah, so you're going to see things like this. You need to understand things like this. You understand the core shadow. I don't know if you can see this well. You understand the core shadow. You understand the core, the shadow, the cast shadow. Um, I don't. This is not how I learned mine. What I learned was that the basic color. I learned about the shadow. I learned about the bounce light. As you can see, um, I learned about the bounce light. I learned about the things such as terminator. The terminator, especially like when light is there's this sharp contrast of colors between the light and the dark whenever light hits a particular object. So you just need to understand something as basic as this for you to be able to break it down, and then you understand values a whole lot more. I don't know if that was helpful though. I have a lot of references about this. Let me look at my Pinterest. In my Pinterest, I have in my Pinterest I have what do they call them? Um Anatomy, structure, no, what's the word for them? There's a word for them. Yes, this is it. This is what I was looking for. Um Something like this, I use it for study. So you'll be able to understand three-dimensional objects with something like this, for instance. And let's say you look at the direction of the light. You see, once the light is hitting a particular object, like this lady, I say lady, this small girl, for instance, you'll be able to understand what makes her face look three-dimensional because you understand light direction, because you understand how light works on a particular object. Dominion, how you doing, man? How you doing? So what gives her face form is the interaction of light. So there's the direct sunlight, there's a highlight, there's the bounce light or reflected light. Some people call it reflected light. Um, this whole thing can be quite confusing, but just know that it's all about values at the end of the day. If you understand values, all these things won't be confusing. So happy birthday, Dominion. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Yeah. Any plans? Do you have any plans for how you doing, Shaki? How you doing? How's your day going? I'm doing good, Dominion. I'm doing good. Thank you for visiting the stream. I appreciate it. How's your week been? Shaki, I haven't danced. I'm still ill, but it's getting better, I think. Oh, that's good news. Lovely is also getting better as well. So that's good news for everybody. Do you care to share your birthday plans with the rest of the class, Dominion?
Any of it lose. And all these, really, but you get like that's how I learned. Like I did everything from just like a map, and then have these points. I mean, I didn't study this myself. It was my mentor, David. Like credit for credit. You cannot find it online. He doesn't post nothing. It's so weird. Like it sounds like I make this person up sometimes because he doesn't have anything, but he really exists. It's David Albayas Mena, but you cannot find it. I already told him like a million times, upload your work. I'm not interested. He does watch Proko. He introduced me to Proko in 2014 or 15, way back. Yeah. And he said this guy teaches anatomy well. What's the thing you struggle with most? It's your art. Anatomy. Yeah, that's still my biggest struggle. I would say that's.
Oh, so your birthday is on Wednesday, Shaki. Your birthday is on Wednesday. Oh, so it's back-to-back birthdays. That's nice.
Every 3 4 months I go back to David and say, hey,
What about you, Shaki? Do you have any birthday plans?
explain me again how the scapula works. So you have the spine of the scapula and all that. Can you explain that the scapula looks like Africa?
Yes, it's true. I forgot you like horses. Yes, those are horses. I'm trying to follow what he's teaching. He's talking about perspective, some perspective tips. It's not a really structured and organized video. He's like people are just I think it's like a convention or something, and people are just asking him questions and he's answering them. And one of the questions I think is mostly on perspective. So he's sort of like breaking it down. He has given me just one really valuable tip though. Nothing, but it is still going to take a lot of practice for me to properly implement it. But it's a very useful tip. So yeah, there's that. But overall, it's been an interesting and knowledge-filled video. Not very rich, but it's still okay.
I'm actually scared. So I'm looking for landmarks, like the map, like the back. Like, for example, let's approach it as our cube, where we're to put all its words. That sort of makes sense in a little bit. Sometimes when I explain these things, if I make a mistake, I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm adding more cubes to get the perspective going. See, like and the more I go, the more confident I am to go to the hooker and stuff. Like hacking and hooker. After a while, it becomes more painterly actually than I'm drawing. I personally don't think there is any difference between painting and drawing. To me, it's all the same. And whenever people think it is different, I think it's going to hold them back because you have to think the same way and you're painting when you're drawing. Yeah, to me, painting is just color. Values, the drawing itself, shape, design, composition, it's all over the umbrella of drawing. But for me, it's the same as if I were to paint it, I could take markers and I'm actually painting. Yeah, but when all the shapes are there, it's gonna be much easier to paint it when the drawing is good. But like I said, for me this is still drawing, like adding these shadow shapes, but it could also be painted. So it's kind of ambiguous the term. Notice that I really make the bottom plane darker. And that weights.
This guy is drawing without a sketch. Bruh. Crazy. It's just crazy, man.
Always put your darkest darks in the bottom. But then now there's a lot of people who's brush. But that's okay because we're in the foreground and the lines can be really thick. See, because I set up all these small shapes here, now they read as like, you can get feel like a depth going in. Everything that's closer to you has thicker lines, and the contours of shapes have very thick lines. Like I wasn't afraid here with the panther here to give it a very thick line because it's close to us. Plus I was trying to mask that I was covering the horse. So. What are you working on getting better at right now? Like that character's acting. That really is the hardest. Like, believable characters, but acting, not just standing there like they do, like real acting. I was very afraid that she would suck. I know, but luckily she came out alright. The way that I work on it is very slow, so the story develops when I'm drawing it a little bit. It's like this panther, I just put it there because I thought it was boring.
I'm planning on buying a tablet so that I can be going live stream. Oh, really? That's nice. You plan on going live stream as well, yeah. That's nice. Yeah, yeah, please do that. Please do that. So maybe you can invite me on your live streams. Maybe you can invite me on your live streams. That would be nice. That would be fun. Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, do it. Do it. And whenever you like set up the live stream or like you do, I'll probably be your first not just subscriber, your first person to like turn up. Could even be a mod on your channel or something. Yeah, that's a good idea, my friend.
Which would have been a major shelf in my food, but I think you need to take risks when you draw. If you're not taking risks, you're not being creative. Just have fun. I mean, that's like the weirdest non-helping thing, but if you like drawing, you will get there eventually. If you just want the end result, you're not gonna get there because you're gonna get frustrated. This takes like a minute, you know. So I think just having fun and whatever level you're at, don't worry. Don't look at what you see in museums or Instagram, whatever. I do look at inspiration, but it gives you anxiety and stuff. Looking at it really about the whole universe is based on simple shapes. When you're practicing perspective, make an artwork in perspective. Don't just even if it's just a practice, like always try to put something into it that's fun to you. Just draw what you want, and then you will get better over time. Perspective matters because it's basically everything. It is the rhythm of the illustration. In the work that I do, storyboarding, animation, perspective is just crucial. I use it all the time. It's the first thing I draw in any picture. My approach that I will be teaching is more based on practicality and trying to be absolutely correct. We'll be covering 1, 2, 3, and 4 point perspective and how I use them and when they're appropriate to use and how to utilize them for various settings. We'll also be using bounding boxes and how to put complex shapes inside of them to make whatever you're drawing more manageable. We're going to be drawing motorcycles and cars in a little bit more of a forced perspective, so you don't have to adhere to the flat perspective that normally I see in front of you. Within the sports, we have an array of cruise vehicles in.
Anyways, this is a very good video. It's not the best in terms of like introducing someone to perspective. It's sort of like for maybe someone that has a little bit of experience and just need like an extra tip when it comes to understanding perspective. Because yeah, I would recommend, if you are interested in understanding the basics of perspective, you go and watch David Finch's video on how, like, in an introduction to perspective, David Finch's introduction to perspective, because that's that's what actually helped me. Um, like, just get a basic uh surface level understanding on perspective, because even at the current moment, I don't understand perspective that much. uh but this, if there's one thing I've learned from this video, it's simply this 4 point perspective stuff, where you could use it to tackle basically anything. And like when you use like curved cubes, and how important curved cubes can be, because it's a lot more, to use his own words, forgiving when you want to actually look at something that you are drawing, rather than just using really purely straight lines, because straight lines are a lot more tedious to sort of like maintain when you're drawing. Anyways, that's just it for this today's study. Or something that I learned. Didn't do much. It wasn't like I still prefer David Finch's video, but I saw this video, and I'm trying to subtly like ease myself. I don't want to bombard myself with knowledge on like perspective and things like that, because I know it's something that can be quite intense, and something that can discourage people. And in my own I really like my approach to art, in the sense of like taking it easy. Once you learn specific information, you don't just like keep being extremely militant about how you study, because art is supposed to be fun. In as much as it's supposed to be challenging, it's still supposed to be fun. So yeah, I just pick one thing today. Maybe tomorrow I'll pick another thing. Maybe next tomorrow I'll pick another thing, or not. uh, but yeah, that's just what I've learned today. We're waiting for the. I really appreciate that optimism and that foresight. I really appreciate it. Yeah, that means a lot. That means a lot. David Finch collab. Yeah, I hope that will happen one day, though. But not at the moment. Yeah, but anyways, guys, I think that will be the end of today's video. uh that'll be the end of today's video. We'll kind of see tomorrow. I really appreciate every single person that joined again. um Yo, Shaki, you haven't told me like your plans for you haven't told me your plans for your birthday. You haven't told me your plans for your birthday. What are your plans? What are the birthday plans? You have none. Yeah, have a nice day, Dominion. Yeah, thanks for joining the stream. You have none. Yeah, anyways. Yeah, it's kind of always similar to mine. Oh, thanks, Dominion. I really appreciate. Yeah, I'll be expecting the updates of your like live stream plans. Yeah, you have a number one fan over here. Yeah, I appreciate the consistency with your outro and your intro. Have a lovely day, my friend. How you doing, Shani? How's your day going? Oh my. How's your day going? Who's sending all that all that smiling emoji? All right. Anyways, guys, I think I'll end the stream here. Thank you guys for joining. It's been an hour and 5 minutes. So tomorrow we'll talk about something else. What would we talk about tomorrow? Probably David Finch. That's my safe space. Yeah, have a nice day, Shaki. Have a nice day. We'll probably look at David Finch. He has a new video, by the way, so I might look at that. I think the video will be on perspective. This was the one we did last time. Stop swiping. Yeah, have a nice day, Shani. Bye bye. So we'll probably look at some perspective hacks. Yeah, since we are still on perspective, we'll just look at some perspective hacks, and that would be really interesting because I already know about cross hatching and stuff. So I'm already relatively all right with that. But perspective is my weak point, so going to watch a video on that. Anyways, guys, for the last time, have a lovely day. Peace.